What would you say if a cop pulled you over right after a checkpoint sign and the whole thing felt fake from the start? Because that trick can turn your fear into their excuse, and one wrong sentence can hand them the stop they didn't have before. If you panic, talk too much, or agree to a search, you can build the case against yourself in real time. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save you from a roadside trap. Smash like now so you can find this video fast when you need these exact words. Here's what you're about to learn before that moment ever happens to you. You're going to learn the first question that forces the officer to say why you were really stopped. You're going to learn the exact line that shuts down phishing questions before they grow into a bigger problem. You're going to learn the one sentence that blocks a consent search even when the officer sounds calm and friendly. And you're going to learn when to ask if you're free to leave so the stop doesn't drag on forever. Most people have no idea that some officers use checkpoint signs, sudden lane changes, and panic reactions to create their opening. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the same mistake keeps showing up. Drivers get scared, they start explaining, then they start guessing, and then they start consenting. Let me show you exactly how you stop that from happening to you without yelling, without arguing, and without making your night worse. Now let's talk about why this matters so much to you. A real checkpoint and a fake checkpoint are not the same thing. A real checkpoint may be set up under strict rules for a limited purpose, like checking for drunk driving. But a fake checkpoint setup usually works more like a pressure trick. Officers put up signs, watch who exits, who turns, who slows down, or who starts acting nervous. Then they look for any little reason to stop that driver. Here's the reality. Your legal turn is not supposed to become a free pass for them to search your car or grill you for 20 minutes. But if you give them bad answers, admit things you did not need to admit, or break a traffic rule while trying to avoid the area, you make their job easy. That is why your words matter more than your feelings in that moment. You need short lines, calm delivery, and zero extra talking. The first thing you need to do is force the officer to name the reason for the stop. If the setup felt fake, you do not start with a speech. You do not accuse the officer of lying. You do not say the checkpoint is illegal. You stay calm and make the officer go first. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, what traffic law do you believe I violated? Word for word. Memorize that line. That question matters because it makes the stop concrete. It stops the officer from floating around in vague language like, you looked nervous or you were acting suspicious. Your job is not to argue roadside law. Your job is to make the officer say the reason out loud while you say as little as possible. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Delaware versus Prouse, the court said police cannot just stop drivers at random without proper legal reason. Plain English, your car is not supposed to be pulled over just because an officer feels curious. And in City of Indianapolis versus Edmond, the court said checkpoints aimed mainly at general crime control, like drug hunting, cross the line. Plain English, cops do not get to build a fake crime detection net and call it normal traffic safety. So if you are stopped after avoiding a suspicious checkpoint area, your first goal is simple. Make the officer name the violation. If they say you failed to signal, rolled a stop sign, crossed a lane line, or had a broken light, now you know what they are hanging the stop on. If they cannot clearly say it, that matters later. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it creates a clean record. It shows you were not arguing. You were asking for the legal basis. Bad way. Most drivers say, I saw that checkpoint and got nervous, so I turned off because I didn't want trouble. Then the officer hears fear, guilt, and a chance to dig deeper. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, what traffic law do you believe I violated? Then the officer has to anchor the stop to something specific. Watch what happens when you give a long explanation instead. The officer now has 10 new things to work with. Your voice, your story, your body language, your reason for turning, your timeline, your passengers, your bags, your nerves, your words become clues they can stretch. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. The less you explain, the less they can turn into suspicion. Former police officers have confirmed this works because they know how quickly roadside small talk becomes evidence language later. Now be smart here. If you really did make an illegal turn, do not lie. If you are asked for license, registration, and insurance, hand them over. Keep your hands visible. Keep your movements slow. Your power is not in out-talking the officer. Your power is enforcing precision while giving away nothing extra. That one question does exactly that. Think you could stay this calm during a real stop? Let me know in the comments because the next line is where most drivers completely lose control. Once the officer starts asking about where you came from, where you are going, whether you saw the checkpoint or why you turned off, you need to stop the fishing trip. This is where people talk themselves into trouble. They think honesty means full conversation. It does not. You are allowed to stop answering questions that can hurt you. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I'm choosing to remain silent, and I want a lawyer. Those exact words. Keep your voice normal, then go quiet. A lot of drivers think police must read Miranda rights the second a stop begins. That is not how it works. In Berkemer versus McCarty, the Supreme Court said ordinary traffic stops are usually not the same as full custodial interrogation. Plain English, you may not get some big TV warning at the side of the road before your answers start hurting you. That is why you must protect yourself before the conversation grows teeth. If you wait for the magic words, you may wait too long. Here's the reality. The officer may sound friendly. Hey, just talk to me. Why'd you turn off there? Got anything illegal in the car? You seem nervous. What's going on? These are not random questions. They are steps. Each answer gives them one more piece. If your story shifts because you are scared, now you look dishonest. If you admit you turned to avoid police, now they say your behavior was suspicious. If you say you were coming from a party or a friend's place, now they test for alcohol or drugs. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when the stop moves from traffic talk into crime talk. Bad way. Most drivers say, I just didn't want to go through that checkpoint because it looked weird, and I'm coming from my cousin's place and I'm just tired. Then the officer keeps stacking reasons to hold the stop longer. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I'm choosing to remain silent and I want a lawyer. Then the officer loses your words as a tool against you. This is 100% legal. You are not fighting. You are not refusing to identify yourself if your state requires it. You are not resisting a lawful order. You are simply refusing to help build a case against yourself. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is short, clear, and hard to twist. The longer you talk, the more room you give them. The shorter you speak, the safer you stay. Watch what happens when you do this right. The officer either moves the traffic part forward or the officer makes the choice to push harder without your help. That is a huge difference. You want every extra step to be their decision, not your donation. And yes, the officer may not like it. That does not matter. Your goal is not to be liked. Your goal is to get through the stop with your rights still intact. Now let me say one more thing that can save you. Silence is strongest when it is calm. No eye roll, no speech about the Constitution, no I know my rights speech. Just the line. Then quiet. The cleaner your delivery, the better you look on camera, in court, and in the officer's report later. The third move is the one that stops many roadside traps cold, and it is the search question. Once an officer cannot get enough from your words, the next move is often consent. They make it sound easy. You mind if I take a quick look? You don't have anything to hide, right? Just trying to clear this up fast. That is the trap inside the trap. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Say it once. Say it clearly, then stop. This line matters because consent changes everything. In Schneckloth versus Bustamonte, the Supreme Court said a search can be valid if your consent was voluntary. Plain English, if you say yes, you may have just made the search legal even if they did not have enough before. That is why you never fill the silence with sure or go ahead or I guess that's fine. One nervous yes can do more damage than 5 minutes of questions. Bad way. Most drivers say, I don't have anything, so yeah, go ahead. Then the officer gets into the car, opens bags, checks compartments, and your whole night changes. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to rely on actual legal grounds instead of your fear. Let me show you exactly why this matters in a fake checkpoint situation. The whole setup is built around pressure. Signs ahead, flashing lights, officers watching reactions. Then a stop based on something small. If you add consent on top of that, you turn a shaky stop into a much stronger case against yourself. That is why this line has to be automatic. Not rude, not loud, automatic. This is 100% legal. You do not have to make the search easy. You do not have to prove you are innocent by opening your trunk, your backpack, or your glove box on command. If the officer has real legal grounds, the officer may still search, but your refusal still matters because you did not hand over permission. Former police officers have confirmed this works because they know how often people consent just to seem cooperative. And remember this, your refusal does not stop at the first ask. Sometimes the officer asks again in a softer way. Sometimes the officer talks to your passenger. Sometimes the officer says, if there's nothing there, why not just let me look? Do not change your answer because the tone changed. Keep the same line, same words, same calm delivery. That consistency is powerful. If you've made it this far, you're serious about protecting your rights. Show me by hitting that like button because this next line is the one that keeps the stop from stretching into a fishing expedition. The fourth move is the release question, and it matters most after the traffic business should be done. Listen closely because this is critical. Some officers finish checking your license, finish writing the warning or ticket, then keep you standing there with more questions. That is when you need clarity. You look at the officer and say this, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. This question matters because it forces the stop into one lane or the other. In Rodriguez versus United States, the Supreme Court said police cannot extend a traffic stop longer than needed for the traffic mission unless they have separate legal suspicion. Plain English, they do not get bonus time just because they want to keep fishing. So, if the traffic reason is done, your question forces the officer to either release you or say you are still being detained for some specific reason. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, I can stay and answer a few more questions. Then the stop keeps growing, the pressure keeps rising, and the officer keeps looking for one more angle. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to either justify the delay or end it. This is where your timing matters. Do not say it in the first 5 seconds. Use it after the documents, after the warning or ticket talk, after the stop should reasonably be over. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection against a stop that keeps drifting. You are not telling the officer what the law is. You are asking a simple question that exposes whether the encounter is still lawful. And if the officer says you are free to leave, leave calmly. Do not hang around. Do not restart the conversation. Do not ask if the checkpoint was fake. Do not give them one last speech. Just go. If the officer says you are being detained, then the line is drawn. That matters later if the delay was not justified. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and that is why this short question can be more powerful than a long roadside debate. Now let's put the legal pieces together in plain English so you can use them under stress. First, Delaware versus Prouse tells you police do not get to stop drivers at random just because they feel like checking. Your car still needs legal protection. Second, City of Indianapolis versus Edmond tells you checkpoints cannot mainly be about general crime control, like broad drug hunting. That matters because fake checkpoint setups often try to create fear and mistakes instead of following narrow checkpoint rules. Third, Rodriguez versus United States tells you a traffic stop cannot be stretched past its real job without separate legal reason. That connects directly to your last question about detention or leaving. Now add your tactics on top of that. You ask what traffic law they believe you violated. You stop the fishing questions by choosing silence and asking for a lawyer. You refuse consent to searches. Then you ask if you are detained or free to leave once the stop should be ending. That is the whole playbook. Short words, calm tone, no extra talking. You are not trying to beat the officer in an argument. You are making the officer carry the legal weight of the stop without using your mouth as a tool. Now let's walk through a real scene so you can hear how this sounds in your own voice. You are driving home at night. You see bright signs that say checkpoint ahead. You do not trust it. You take the next legal exit. A patrol car pulls out behind you and lights you up a minute later. Wrong way first. You roll down the window fast, start blurting out that you saw the checkpoint, say you were not doing anything wrong, admit you turned off because it looked fake, then laugh and say they can search the car if they want because you have nothing to hide. The officer now has your fear, your admission, your long story, and your consent. That stop just got 10 times worse for you. Now the right way. You pull over safely. Your hands stay visible. You hand over your documents when asked. If the officer starts with, "Why'd you turn off back there?" you do not take the bait. First you ask, "Officer, what traffic law do you believe I violated?" If the officer keeps pressing with where you came from or why you avoided the checkpoint, you say, "Officer, I'm choosing to remain silent and I want a lawyer." If the officer asks to search, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If the warning is done and the officer keeps you there, you ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" That is the right way. See the difference. In the wrong version, you create the case with your own mouth. In the right version, the officer has to rely on actual facts and actual law. That is a huge advantage for you. You stay respectful, you stay calm, you comply with lawful orders, but you do not help turn a weak roadside setup into a stronger case. Next week, I'm breaking down what to say when cops claim they smell weed and use that line to search your car. Subscribe right now because if you miss that video, you miss one of the biggest search tricks used on drivers every day, so lock this in before you ever see flashing lights. If the stop feels like it came from a fake checkpoint setup, make the officer state the traffic reason. If the questions start turning into a fishing trip, you choose silence and ask for a lawyer. If the officer wants inside your car, you do not consent to any searches. And if the traffic part should be over, you force clarity by asking if you are detained or free to leave. Those 4 lines keep you calm, keep you clean, and keep you from giving away your rights for free. Hit subscribe so you catch the next video before you need it on the side of the road. Smash like if this just gave you words that could protect your future. And drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.